Welcome everyone. This is episode 29 of the Transmaxxing podcast. And today's topic is issues with therapy, psychiatry and the drug culture. The notion that we can fix personal issues with drugs is very widespread. And even when there is evidence that this is not a good idea long term, people tend to push and use drugs anyway and push others or even outright force others to participate in that insanity. Even when evidence is showing that it isn't working, there's still this push by authorities, by media, and by a very large part of the public to use all those drugs and get into therapy. The problem here is that we are not actually fixing any of the underlying issues by just trying to deal with the symptoms or temporarily maybe make people feel better or at least make them more manageable for the moment. So I'm going to start by asking Corvalus about your experience dealing with psychiatry.
So I've only had one instance of dealing with some sort of psychiatry therapy. Well, actually I have two. So when I went to get my hormones and stuff after waiting 3 years on a wait list, they basically just asked me they didn't really ask me much about my life before allowing me to get prescriptions for HRT. So they didn't really stop me. And then, they wanted to talk to me more about other things, but they never really helped. It didn't seem like they'd have any accountability to help make me change. So it just felt like it was very much a nothing burger kind of thing. And the first time I had any sort of thing was grief counseling because my mother died. And honestly, I felt more bad about my dad losing money because this woman wasn't really doing anything for us. We were very shut in. We didn't really even know what to talk about. And yeah, both times I didn't really have a good experience at all.
And to be honest, I'm not even sure if this is a good idea. I think if you have lost someone, you want to grieve alone, not talk with others about what happened. You want to grieve and process that on your own pace. So I'm not sure if talking to someone about it is really what you should do.
I had a similar experience. My mom got in a really bad car wreck and lost her face and everything. We thought she was going to die, but then she went in a coma, but then we had decided to pull the plug on her. She ended up surviving, not well. And then we went to grief counseling for it, and it also did nothing. We just, I still had horrible flashbacks about it and everything. And, the counselor pretty much just let us play with toys in a room. That's all it was, with toys in someone's room.
What has your later experience been with psychiatry?
I guess the mental hospital was first. I freaked out. I don't want to tell you how I got there, but I ended up getting there for doing a bunch of stuff I should have did. And then they gave me a psychiatrist there, and all he kind of did was bring you in a room and ask you a few questions and see if you were what he deemed was okay, but he didn't seem he was actually listening or cared. He was just kind of throwing medicine at you. And then he also got in trouble for putting a bunch of people on medicine they didn't need. He tried to give me a nicotine patch, and I don't even smoke.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I thought this looks bad. And then he tried to give somebody, what's it called? A puberty blocker that they didn't need. I thought that was weird.
Oh my gosh. How old was this person? Was there any sort of competency issue, or was he just evil?
I think he was just evil, but we were all patients in this hospital, and they didn't seem to care about us. And if you said no to your medicine, they'd put it in a syringe and inject it into you.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they would say, you can either let me squirt this into your mouth, or you take it, or we inject it into you.
Yeah, you might be able to pretend taking it. You cannot always pull it up, but sometimes you can like pretend like swallowing the stuff. It's not guaranteed to work, obviously. But yeah, this is a big issue with all these involuntary measures that they are doing. Is that then there isn't really check against like bad medical practices, while otherwise, if you go to an actual doctor and he recommends something stupid, you can just say no, go to someone else. Like, let's say you go to a doctor and he wants to give you chemotherapy, but you don't have cancer. You can just not take it, go to somewhere else. But with psychiatrists, you don't always have that option, which makes it even more dangerous. Because they are not the ones suffering the consequences from bad decisions.
Well, what happened was, I'm pretty sure they signed a bunch of paperwork saying I wasn't able to, make my own decisions, like, without my knowledge. And they even asked me about a bunch of things, and then they signed it the way they want it to be signed. Like, they said, do you want to stay here anymore? And I said no. And then they wrote down on paperwork that I still have that it said I volunteered to stay there longer.
Wow.
Which I did not, in fact, volunteer to stay there longer.
I remember earlier we discussed if you could potentially sue them or do anything, but yeah, good luck with that. You might actually win, but the damage is already done.
Yeah, I was there for a long time, and a lot of bad stuff happened there, so suing them wouldn't really make me feel much better.
There could be financial benefits to it, at the very least.
That's true. I don't even know how it would prove that I wasn't me who, obviously it wasn't me who signed it, but I don't know how I can prove that, the doctors, because they based it off of word of mouth, not me signing anything. The doctor signed things for me. So I don't know how to prove that, I said what I said. I just have proof of what they signed.
The matter of the professionals that are fucking you over have more authority in some of these situations, and it can be very hard to sue them.
Yeah, they're in such a position of power.
During civil matters, if there is discovery, if it actually doesn't get dismissed, so then you can request various evidence be brought forward, and they might be able to discover something. They definitely want to avoid the discovery. And they might also settle to get rid of you, not have to deal with you, give you a bunch of money so you shut up.
Yeah, they could give you money just to make you be quiet so then you don't speak about the atrocities that happened in this psych ward, mental hospital thing you explained.
It was a mental hospital, but yeah, sounds pretty accurate of what they were doing.
The general issue with psychiatry is that while it is supposedly about helping people, it's very obvious that this functions more as a police station than a prison and a punishment institute, where they do cruel and unusual punishments while pretending that it is for the good of the patients. But it's very obvious that a lot of this is just about controlling people and deterring unwanted behavior without having to go through the official courts. And of course you're supposed to go to court to hold someone longer than it's either you can hold someone for 72 hours or it is 14 days depending on the situation. But as you're told,
I was definitely there longer than 14 days.
Yeah, of course. But even if it goes to court, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage against a psychiatrist, especially if they drug you up and you can have multiple professionals there testifying and claiming that you're insane, you have schizophrenia, and if you're okay, they can say that you're okay now, but this is only because of the medication, so you need to stay on that to remain well. And if you're not well, they can say that oh, clearly you're not well, you're not suitable for making decisions on your own.
I can see that.
So the system is rigged against the so-called patients here. And especially,
it's definitely rigged.
Yeah, especially if you have done anything remotely illegal, they can use that as well as say that clearly you harm people here, and then you can be even more screwed.
Exactly. I couldn't really harm people, but pretty close. But yeah, I did make a scene in a public area. So that would definitely be against me. But yeah, like you said, they definitely have the advantage. Because most of the time, if they're like, okay, so you're a mentally ill person. Okay, do we trust the crazy person or this professional with a degree about crazy people? And then you just look bad in the whole scenario.
Yeah, which is what is problematic that we have a different standard when it comes to holding people in mental hospitals compared to the actual legal system. So you don't actually need to be convicted of any crime to be locked up in a psych ward, which is pretty insane, to be honest.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I always thought they had to have a reason to lock you into a mental hospital.
yeah, they do need official to have a reason, but you don't actually have to have committed any real crime. It is a lot easier to lock people up if they have been convicted of a crime or if they have done something like illegal or seems to be illegal. But the system is kind of messed up because it doesn't go through the typical court process. It's not the same standard of evidence as an actual conviction of a crime. So you're actually better off being tried in a criminal court and risking jail than to be tried via the mental health system.
They really make it feel like you're doing a crime, because when I was in California, they said something about it's part of their laws or something about how they have to take you there in a police car and police have to take you there. And the police took me there handcuffed. And they put me in a cop car, handcuffed me, and then drove me there, put me like a little holding cell thing, and it felt like I was doing a crime. And I was like, this is not the way it needs to be done, because now I'm even more stressed out.
I mean, you're actually best off, even if you have like a psychotic episode, you're actually best off claiming that you weren't psychotic, you were totally sane and you did it intentionally. Because you're better off being sent to a jail for like a year than to a psych ward. So you're actually best off doing the reverse of the insanity defense. You claim that you were sane and you really want to avoid like the entire system, but the issue is that sometimes when people are suspected of a crime, they might think they're better off like claiming insanity and trying to like go to a psych ward instead, which is a big mistake.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a mistake to go to the psych ward over jail. It's not good in there. I have a brother in prison, and he has more freedoms than I did in the hospital.
Yeah, is that bad?
It's that bad. I have actually multiple family in prisons, and they'll tell me about their experience in prison, saying all this stuff they can do and get. And I was thinking, I never got to do any of that in a mental hospital. If I were to try any of that, the nurses would like chain me to a bed.
Yeah, it's truly horrible what they put you through in those psych wards and stuff.
They definitely don't treat you like a person. They weren't giving me my hurt for a while in there, because they said, this was in St. Louis. They didn't give me my hurt for a while. In this one, they said, I don't have to take my medicine. So they said, if I said no to taking medication, they didn't force it on me, but they really wanted me to. So I said, if you don't give me my hurt, I'm not going to take my medicine.
And by hurt, you mean hormone replacement therapy?
Yes, my hormone replacement therapy. I said, if you don't give it to me, I'm not going to take any other medication. And they kept saying, well, this is a Christian or a Catholic or some kind of religious. This place is religious and we don't believe in that.
Wow.
And they went out of their way to call me sir and all that.
Yeah, this
and I know
might even be a hate crime, to be honest, because if they are like religious and hate trans people, they might be intentionally screwing you over because of that, to be honest.
Well, eventually they did give it to me after like a week.
Yeah, but they still kept you in the psych ward, though. Like maybe if you weren't transgender, you would have gotten out earlier, to be honest. Like I don't trust Christians to not be evil like that. Like at least not people like that who are like fundamentalist Christians who believe in the Bible over laws and what's actually right to do.
Yeah, and I thought the state was separate from the church personally, but apparently not.
Not in practice. Christianity
Yeah.
and all that, this has infiltrated all aspects of governance. So even though it's supposed to be separate because they have all this institutional power via the courts and everything, it's not really separate anymore at that point. But it's also kind of weird how California allowed Christians to run a psych ward where they discriminate against trans people like that.
Well, the California psych ward is at least very accepting about, like, being gay or trans. They're pretty accepting about it, so that was cool. They just weren't, like, decent humans to, like, understanding human needs. Like, we were sharing all one bathroom, and someone rubbed poop all over it, and I didn't want to, like, and this bathroom didn't have a shower, and I needed to go to the bathroom, and they just basically told me to hover over it if I didn't want to sit on the poop. And they didn't clean it for like 24 hours.
I think the worst aspect is of course that often those drugs, like for example the antipsychotics, don't even work well long term. And this is general with drugs, is that when you keep giving it to someone, it will affect their brain. So then when you stop taking it, you will have withdrawal issues. So then they might become like psychotic again and do some crazy stuff. And then the psychiatrist will say, oh, look what happened when they stop taking the drug, now we have to resume it again, and then the people can never quit. Of course you have to slowly taper off if they have become dependent upon it. But this is the big issue, that you might in some cases see some short-term benefits with some of those drugs. But then over time it doesn't really work too well because the brain will adapt to it. Then you are back to square one again, except for the side effects and all the health issues you get from those drugs.
I can definitely see that. I'm on like my third medication now. I'm on my third antipsychotic or fourth now. The other ones didn't seem to just do it for me. Hopefully this one will, but I have a feeling it won't.
Yeah, it will not work long term, it can work short term, but no drug will work long term. It seems like even all the science we have on this, it's pretty clear that you're actually better off taping it off when you are stable. Because then if you become unstable, the drug might actually work if you resume it. While if you have taken something for a long time, then the regular dose will stop working and you will need it even more then.
You're saying I shouldn't even take it?
Yeah, probably shouldn't.
That's good because I haven't been. But I still get drug tested to see if I'm taking it. So if I quit taking it, they visit me weekly too now. But they test me every month, I think, to see if I'm taking my medication. They test my blood, which feels a bit extreme.
I mean, if you're not in a community treatment order, they shouldn't legally even do that.
Yeah.
I
don't know the legality of it, I'll be honest.
But psychiatry always operates outside the law, kind of, where the authorities look the other way because they do what the authorities want, they don't really care about it. But then you have to try to go to court and stop them, which is kind of difficult. So they are giving all this extra judicial power over people because they are useful for authorities to manage people they dislike. But yeah, they shouldn't do that. If there is no community treatment order, they shouldn't have the right to force you to take drugs. And even if they do, you could just maybe move states and escape it, to be honest.
Well, very helpful information. I'll remember this.
Yeah, the issue here is that a lot of people don't know their rights, so they might put up with a lot of abuse needlessly because the psychiatrist isn't going to tell them that you have X and Y rights. And they always try to
Actually, in the California mental hospitals, they have a board up next to the phone that lists off all of your rights. And it goes the first right, second right, just numbers them all off and says what they are. But it's definitely an outdated poster because there's some up there. There's just some that should be up there that just clearly weren't. Anything you said was not up there. It just said basic things that you'd see in if you were going to jail. So if you have a right to a phone call, stuff like that.
Wow. They make it
Like
seem
really,
like jail. Jesus Christ.
it felt like it was very like just telling me I have basic human rights. Like we have to feed you. You can call your family. Shit like that. You would assume you'd get anyway.
Okay, but they didn't mention anything about going to courts and challenging the holder or anything like that.
Nope. None of that got mentioned. I had a person come into me after 14 days. She said she was representing me for something, but like talked to me 10 minutes and then said, "We'll get you out of here, don't worry." And then I never saw her again. And then I, in fact, did not get out of there for a very long time after seeing her. So I'm wondering if she had anything to do with that.
If there was a trial and you weren't here, you could have been screwed over there because he represented you and they lost, and that's it. That could have happened, to be honest. I don't know your case.
Wouldn't they have to tell me that's happening? Not just her walking in a room and saying, like, she's going to represent me and, like, going to get me out of here and that kind of stuff, but she never explicitly described what she was doing.
I mean, it's very strange. Most likely they never held a trial in the first place, to be honest. That's my guess.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, it seems like these places have so much power and stuff that, like, they kind of just can do whatever they want. Like you said, they can just, like, let you have to deal with this shit and not clean it up for 24 hours and, like, treat the patients like the worst kind of shit ever. And it's so sad to hear all this.
It's like, who's going to believe us? And even if they do believe us, what are they going to do?
I mean, even if you shoot them, they're not personally going to be held accountable. It's the state that have to pay it, probably. Or like,
Oh, that's a good point.
I think the next topic we should cover is the stimulant medication that is often given to people diagnosed with ADHD. They actually did a study on this that lasted 36 months. And then when they compared the groups, they found, surprise, surprise, no difference. So they have one group that received both medications, stimulants that didn't work, and therapy that didn't work. Then they had one group that only got stimulant medication that didn't work long term. Then they had one group that just had behavior therapy that didn't work long term. Then they had the control group that did some bullshit standard thing. So it wasn't completely nothing, but yeah, basically the therapy didn't work and the medication didn't work, surprise, surprise.
Oh yeah, and all the horrible side effects.
And to be accurate here, is people diagnosed with ADHD, nobody has looked at the brain, so nobody knows what they are actually having for issues in terms of like mental stuff going on in their head. Nobody knows that. But obviously there are people who are struggling with concentrating and focusing. And there are actually a lot of people who take those drugs even though they don't even have a diagnosis with ADHD.
I did not know that. Why would one take medication for ADHD if they don't have it? Do they just like think they have it? What do they stand to gain here?
I think some of them have recreational usage for the drugs.
Oh, you're talking about getting high on it. My dad used to steal mine from me and do that.
You're lucky he stole it from you, to be honest. But actually a lot of people are taking it for studying, for example. When they are doing things that require concentration, they might feel like they are performing better on those drugs. And we actually do have a study on people who played chess. And across all those games, we actually did see that people did slightly better on the stimulants, but not statistically significantly better. But then the study also stood something really strange, which is an obvious case of manipulating the data. They excluded games where people lost on time, and because from the stimulants people were spending more time on each move, they ended up playing better, but they actually lost more on time, which erased a lot of the benefits they got from it. So they probably didn't perform any better in terms of intelligence. They just spent more time on some moves, which sure helped them play better moves, but also resulted in them not having enough time to actually finish the game, so a lot of the time they will just lose some time instead. And this is what the stimulants did to people. And it was similar with modafinil, methylphenidate, and caffeine.
So you're saying it doesn't make you perform better? Is what a lot of people think it does?
A lot of people are taking it when studying because they might struggling with focusing on the studies, because they might want to like socialize, go outside, do something like fun, but instead they have to like study for some pointless test to like get their degree in like 5 years or whatever. So naturally people are going to struggle focusing on this stuff, and they want to do something else, and that to force them to study to take those stimulants. Like it's a bad idea obviously, but people are desperate, sometimes students are. On that note, I actually finished my degree without having taken that shit, and I don't regret that. It was the right decision not to take any of those stimulants. I did get a bachelor degree in mathematics. Like before, I was actually stressed out because I was studying in physics and it was too much at the same time with all this reports, bullshit and stuff. But instead of like putting up with that nonsense, I switched to a different faculty, so I graduated in mathematics instead of physics. And I never had to like take any stimulant medications, and I had more time to do other stuff in my life besides just studying. So maybe people shouldn't like study so hard and force themselves through this like arduous processes just to get some degree. It's not really worth it if you have to take drugs.
Yeah, oftentimes living a healthier life and just having like a moderate amount of studying tends to like help more than those who stress out too much and like lose on sleep, because oftentimes the lack of sleep makes it so then they actually forget more of the stuff that they studied.
Yeah.
Vicious cycle.
I remember when I was studying mathematics, there was this math exam that I didn't have time to study for, so I was thinking that I used to write the re-exam instead, save more time. But I was thinking that I might as well as practice write the original exam to see how it goes. And I spent like a day reading the book. That was the only studying I did for that course at all, because before that I had focused on another math class instead. So I didn't spend any time on it besides going to class and attending. So I attended pretty much everything, but I never like did any calculations on my own. I didn't read the book until like the day before the test, where I did download an ebook and read that. And this was the only thing I did for the test. And then of course I passed the first try.
Nice.
And I'm not sure how, but for some reason a third of the students failed the exam. I'm not sure what they did to fail.
Yeah,
maybe you're just like extra smart.
Yeah, I'm smarter than most people, sure, but still.
I know I went in like a very easy course in business administration, and accounting seems like the most simplest stuff. But I think I can understand why a lot of people fail, is because a lot of it is like, it's an English-based kind of, like accounting is mostly English-based. So it's harder for people who have English as a second language to perhaps do as well than me, because they're trying to translate everything in the midst and then find the right word in all of this. May not be like the hardest for some people, but you know, it's an extra step for a lot of people and it can make things harder.
Yeah, definitely. There are many reasons why people are struggling with studies, with work. And when people are struggling, they might feel desperate, and then they might seek like therapy, psychiatry, or take some drugs recreationally. Like a lot of people are using cannabis, for example.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of people are thinking, like, I feel bad in the moment and just hop right to doing a bunch of stuff they don't need to do. So they think they have to fix all these problems they don't have. So they're stressed for like 10 minutes.
What people might not realize is that often when you're feeling like depressed or stressed out is a natural human emotions for a reason. So for example, when I was doing trading, I was like stressed out over a short position. It turned out I should have just closed the position right then. rather than stressing out about it because it was a bad position to remain in. This is why I was stressed out. I did close it eventually, but I ended up earning less money than if I had closed it down earlier. Yeah, I did not stop doing chores in the first place because it was too risky, but that's another subject. So often when you're stressed out, it's because there's something wrong with your life that you need to fix. And often, when you're stressed out, just doing some research, trying to read, that will actually fix it. You will feel better after a while when you do something about it.
Yeah, honestly, in this society, a lot of times we're so oriented in finding a quick fix for our problems. And sometimes it may not be so quick, and other times it may be something that you can work on more yourself. That's the biggest thing I found, and the criticism I had when it came to psychiatry and stuff is a lot of times they're giving me answers to the same kind of, or they're asking the same questions and giving me the same kind of answers that I already thought of, that I already can't really do, and they don't really have any way of helping me any further.
There is this big misconception that you can easily help people by talking to them. This is not really true. Sometimes you can help people by giving them important information. Of course, the psychiatrist isn't going to do that for the most part because they want you to stay there as long as possible and lure you up on various drugs.
Yeah, I definitely noticed talking, well, just tell us about it, we'll talk about it, and it doesn't really solve any of my problems. You feel exactly the same, and nothing really changes. It's just that now it was verbally said out loud is the only difference.
Yeah, talking about problems doesn't make them go away. Let's say, for example, your child is dying of cancer. Then go to a therapist and talk about it's not going to save my child's life. And it's disrespectful almost that, let's just make you feel better of your child dying. That's surely going to solve everything. No, you need to look for a cure. That will actually, if anything, make you feel a little bit better. Maybe there is some treatments in some other country that is right about to be approved for him or whatever.
Feels like they don't treat mental illness as like an illness like they would treat cancer. I'm not saying they're anywhere near the same. I'm just saying they're both an illness, and they don't treat it they need to treat it more like a physical illness instead of something that oh, we'll talk about it, you'll feel better. They treat it like it's just an emotion that will pass. It's not something that's wrong with you.
I mean, I'm not sure if there is a physical illness though. And here is maybe a deeper issue with psychiatry, is that there is this assumption that there is something wrong with the brain. Sure, it can be, but then taking drugs is probably not going to help anyway. But even in that case, talking to someone isn't going to help. So there's something wrong with your brain, then there's nothing you can do probably in most cases. Or there's something wrong externally, but if there is something wrong externally, talking about it with the therapist isn't going to make it go away. Then you're spending money which you could have used better to actually solve the problem.
Actually find a cure for the problems, and then instead of pretend giving you what they call a cure, which is whatever medication they give you that doesn't work.
Let's say, for example, you have economic issues. The solution then is to look for ways to solve those issues. For example, you might file for personal bankruptcy if it is too deep. Or you might find some way to earn more money. You might be able to renegotiate your debt with your debtor who provided you the money. Or you might be able to take a loan elsewhere with lower interest rate. Or all those other options for dealing with those economic troubles you are having. But instead of doing enough debt, are you supposed to feel depressed about it and then let's go about your 20% interest rate on the $200,000 you're owing the banks? That's not the solution. If you have some problem, you have to fix the actual problem if it can be fixed. And if it cannot be fixed, trying to cope, sure it might help a little bit, but from my experience, what actually works long term is actually fixing the problem, make it go away. This will make you feel a lot better. Okay, this marks the end of episode 29 of the Transmaxxing podcast. I hope that you will have a nice day forward and never have to step into a psych ward ever in your life. Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye.